I'm Nick Armstrong, and you're watching Dear Fort Collins, a podcast featuring the people that make Fort Collins a wonderful place to live. This series of episodes is all about the election that's happening in November 2025. And we're interviewing all of the different candidates for mayor, city council, and PSD School Board. And we want to hear from them in their own words about why they're running, what they care about, and you then can be more informed about who you're voting for when it's time to fill out your ballot. With ranked choice voting, it's really difficult to know sometimes who your candidates are and what order you're going to rank them in. So I hope these series of episodes really help you figure out which candidates best align with your interests and needs. And as we do these interviews, I want you to know that I have given the candidates access to the questions in advance. I try to ask all of the candidates the same questions, or at least give them an opportunity to answer the same questions in the same kind of way. And there's very minimal editing on any of these episodes. So unless there was an errant sneeze or a cat jumping on someone's lap, you're hearing from the candidates in their own words. I do have a quick disclaimer to give you that I serve on the Parks and Recreation Board for the city of Fort Collins, and my opinions on this show are my own. They're not the position of the board or of the city. And I have also advised a number of the candidates about their campaigns, and in some cases have either helped with their campaigns or made a donation here or there. I do my absolute best to make sure that they all get fair treatment, that there aren't any favorites being played, and that also we're asking them the same types of questions and they have an opportunity to answer those in kind. I hope that you enjoy these episodes and that they help you become a more informed voter in the upcoming election. And if you do have any questions, concerns, or comments, please let me know and reach out on the Dear Fort Collins website. I'm always happy to hear from you. And some of the questions that you'll hear me ask of the candidates have been submitted by listeners and watchers just like you. Folks who are fans of the show and want to know more about particular candidates and their positions on particular things. So with that, let's get on with the show. On this episode of Dear Fort Collins, we have Karla Baise, who's running in District C for the Poudre School Board. Karla, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me today.
What got you to run for school board?
I have lived in Fort Collins for 26 years, and I have two kids that are thriving in Poudre School District. And I want to make sure that kids across the entire district have the same access to the amazing resources that my kids have had, being students at Tavelli and now a middle schooler at Lincoln and a high school student at Poudre. I think that I'm really driven by a strong sense of belonging, and I think that an educated populace is what's going to save our democracy.
You and I know each other through our work through Fort Collins Comic-Con and through Odell's, the community outreach management that you do. Yeah. Tell me about what other unique experience you bring to the table that you think will help serve PSD families effectively.
I hope that my experience in our community will be helpful in this role should I be elected. I feel like my community outreach role at Odell has given me a very holistic perspective of our community. I see the need at the low side of the disparity, and I see the wealth that we have and the high side. I think that one of my goals is to help us achieve a stronger middle. I want to see families that I work with in other spaces have a voice and feel like they're seen and heard. And I also am deeply committed to making sure that our educators and classified employees have access to dignified wages.
Of all of those priorities, can you share the one project or policy or issue that you'd like to tackle first if elected?
Oh, man, I don't know that I get a choice. I feel like the school board's already got a pretty deep docket. But, budget and fiscal responsibility is always on the top of that heap, I think. We have CASB coming up in December. I know a lot of choices need to be made pretty quickly. And I'm hopeful that, because our property taxes are higher, that we've got some more access to funds to make sure that some of these projects can come to fruition. A dear friend of mine, Leah Jones, is heading up the Aware project at PSD right now, which feeds right into um, that sense of belonging that I think every kid here needs. Belonging is the opposite of anxiety, said my friend Heather. And I feel really, really strongly about that. So I think that as we're looking at the budget and considering things, um, I really want to work with marginalized kids in our community. So we'll be working with CASB to develop budgets across the state. Um, and I've had some cool experiences so far. I'm proudly endorsed by our teachers union, by the PEA. And I also just received the endorsement of the Working Families Party. My values definitely align with the Working Families Party and their members. And I was in my interview with a wonderful mental health specialist from Colorado Springs and Pueblo. She kind of straddles those two places. And she was seeking their endorsement as well. So that, already I'm meeting folks that I feel like have really similar drives and ambitions in this space.
What do you see as the most pressing needs of the Poudre School District students right now?
I'm highly concerned about our literacy rates. I think, before COVID, I'm going to mention the dreaded pandemic. Our literacy rates were at ninth grade level, which is still a very low bar and a place where we needed to improve from. And since COVID, they've dropped to as low as fifth grade, which I think is unacceptable. I think that we have to do a lot of work. I'm encouraged that the state is putting funding in dyslexia testing. Starting the school years of 2027, 2028, we'll see district-wide testing, statewide testing from kindergarten to third grade for dyslexia. I think that that's going to immediately help our literacy rates. I think as soon as you start collecting data and understanding how kids are learning, that's where we start really making we can really start to make some differences. And I think that there are incredible human beings in the United States and other parts of this country doing great work. There's a woman in Steubenville, Ohio, that heads up an incredible literacy program in her school district, and every kid in that district can read by grade 3. And that's even kids that come to them in grade 1, not just from kindergarten. So there are people doing amazing work. I think that the name of the game for me is collaboration. I think that that only happens through listening, deep listening, understanding needs, and then evaluating and using the tools that we have. I think that there are a lot of people doing really great work, and it doesn't cost a lot to share information. So I'll be looking into sort of intrepid ways to use our time and energy wisely.
And the monitoring report from PSD for 2025, which came out in February, indicated that the average PSD student is about 63rd percentile in the state for their literacy and math scores overall for academics. This is a over 3 years rise in literacy rates. And we've seen that with the advent of COVID in particular, that there's a lot of different things that go into that, whether it was technology or having access to homeschooling or other things like that happened at the same time. So do you see that the students themselves are that there's a cohort of students that's performing less well than others? And if so, how do we address those particular needs?
There are students in our district that are not getting the same help that kids like my kids have gotten. I think that there's a disparity in funding in the district. I think I was asked a really great question at a listening session on Sunday. My friend Michelle asked me if I thought we were a school of districts or a school district or a district of schools. Let me make sure I say that right. And I think that right now we've been sort of trained to become a district of schools. I think that us kind of siloing some of these schools has enabled a lot of disparity. I think that I'm not anti-school of choice. We voted on it as Coloradans in the 90s. We decided that we wanted that. So I think that that's something that we have to consider is a part of our community. But our charter schools and school choice, which is about 10% of our kids, also need to be beholden to the same oversight as our neighborhood schools. And I think that what we see happening is that our neighborhood schools get, a little damaged. They get underfunded when kids leave those schools. Some folks equate it to their backpack of money that those kids choose to take their backpack of $12,000 a year to another school. I think that so to answer your question in that roundabout way, to stop disparity, to make our schools more equitable, I think is one of the most pressing issues that we have right now. I think that if we can make our neighborhood schools so inviting that kids don't want a choice out of them, that they don't want to go anywhere else. If we have art and STEM and all of the, great words, IB, if we offer a valuable education experience at each of our neighborhood schools, then our kids will stay. I should have mentioned too that is our funding model, that we fund schools based on student numbers. So that's important to point out when we're having this conversation. Yeah, I think we're able to do that. I think that this district draws talent. People want to live in Fort Collins, including our educators. We know that our classified employees want to be here, even though some of them are not receiving a livable wage right now. They're doing great work, and we need to continue to attract great educators and participations in our schools so that we can offer those great opportunities.
I want to touch on something real quick before we jump ahead to staffing. How do you think that PSD should approach class sizes, staffing, resource allocation in the years ahead, knowing that we do have budget numbers that, you as you alluded to, class size being sufficiently large to pay for certain things, but also a large class size can also be to the detriment of students who are on the autism spectrum or ADHD, who might need a little bit of extra attention or extra help from paras, which then also costs additional funding. So tell me more about how you think PSD should approach those disparities and balance the needs of the classes and the students versus the needs of the staff and the school in terms of funding.
I'm really drinking from the fire hose. I'm learning so much and have in the last few months here. So I'm not current on what data shows is a really healthy classroom. I only really know at this point what my kids' experience has been. I know that when my son was in kindergarten, there were 36 kids in his class, which is a really full kindergarten class. But we had a para, who's one of your neighbors, my dear friend Gretchen Wheeler. So we were super lucky that because Tavelli had those student numbers, that his kindergarten teacher was able to have that extra help. And I know that's not happening district-wide, and we're seeing just a wild flux in student numbers because there's low birth rate. People aren't able to move here like they used to be because of cost of living. But again, this is a great place. So I do think that our numbers are going to bounce back. So how do we keep these classroom settings healthy and keep those numbers below 36 if we don't want to have paras in the classroom, or how do we pay our paras a living wage if we do have larger classrooms? I think that's the question you're asking.
Yeah.
I think that is going to take funding. I mean, I don't know any other way, Nick. And so we're going to have to decide as a community what we want for our kids and what we want for our community in perpetuity. I think that Fort Collins is a pretty special place. Wellington, LaPorte, Timnath, Livermore, everywhere that we have, that's a part of Poudre School District. Even, we dip into parts of Loveland. It's such an incredible place to live that I, I think that, yeah, I think our future looks bright. I think that we're going to keep drawing more folks here at higher wage jobs, and that we'll be able to fund programming in our schools that'll support healthy class size.
So in your view, what's the right way for teachers, administrators, and families to collaborate when these questions come up about how the district's priorities, and in particular around budgeting and funding and school consolidations, since all of those things are some coming down the pipeline. And I heard you also mention that funding as a priority for the community to fund educational programs and higher wages for staff, while balancing also class sizes and things like that. How do you see the district and teachers and families collaborating together?
I'm really encouraged that our current board has created listening sessions at different schools. And they're doing a really good job of sort of moving those listening sessions around the district. So I also have had the experience of attending a couple of Board of Education meetings this school year, and I got to see the vote on community comment. And so that was really powerful for me to see some of the families in the room that feel like that is their space to be heard, almost have that taken away. And I was really encouraged by our board that they voted to keep it. I think just in saying, we still want to hear from you. We still want to hear your voice. I think that's powerful and really, really important. I never want to take away an opportunity to hear from families in the district. Yeah, like I said, I'm really drinking from the fire hose here. I'm learning so much. And a lot of that is coming from families and what their experience is like.
So I've heard you mention a number of times you want to support staff more than you feel that PSD is currently supporting staff through higher wages. How can PSD better support teachers and staff to help reduce burnout and improve retention?
Again, I think that our board has done a lot of encouraging things. I was thrilled to see that we had one of the highest raises that we've had in, I think, over a decade, just recently, which was needed for so long. I'm keenly aware of how expensive it is to live here. And I think that our educators are our experts that we're entrusting our children to each and every day. One of the reasons I got involved in school board and pursuing this position in my community is because of the reaction that I had when I took my kids to the first day of kindergarten. I was that hysterical mom that got led away crying because I understood so well that my influence on my kid's life was at least going to be halved. And I had to trust the institution that I was leaving my children at. And so that to me says that's where we need to be investing. We need to make sure that we have the best teachers in the state here in Poudre School District. And that's not to say that, that's just my personal goal is to make sure that we continue to be an attractive place to live, that we can support healthy livelihoods here, and that our kids have access to the best. We have to get our kids' future ready too. There's no lack of. I mean, my kids making my my campaign material, my assets. So, I mean, she's already so much smarter than me at 16. It's so cool. And she, she gets to go to Poudre, which is just phenomenal. She's in the aviation program. So she gets to benefit from CTech. And I can't tell you how incredible I think that is, and that she's earning college credits while she's there. And all of that costs money. All of that takes effort and time and investment from our community. But if we're giving our high school kids access to higher paying jobs, then hopefully they'll stick around and I won't have to move away later because they can't afford to live here. Yeah, I see what could happen in this community, and I really want to make sure that we see that holistic, like investing in our future. I got to talk to Matthew Liberati on Sunday too, and he's such a brilliant guy, and we were talking about that investment, and he told me that each dollar we invest in a kid in our school district is like 7 times invested back into our community. That's brilliant. I mean, I don't know of a better rate of return. That just seems so, I'm sure there are, but that just seems so powerful to me.
Yeah, the PSD Futures Lab and so many different programs that exist to get kiddos into their career ready type of fields, whether they want to do welding or whether they want to do aeronautics. All of those things are so fantastic that they can also earn college credit in that. So knowing that the partnership with Front Range Community College drives some of the schedule choices and how the district is, making, school start times and how many days we have in the school year, and also, which days are we able to like take off for heat reasons and whatever else. How do we optimize education, teacher work and prep days, and also the need for in-classroom education while keeping the community informed about all of those things?
Well, the first thing I would recommend that any of your listeners that are interested in that do are join the calendar committee. I think that that's a great strategy for our school board to deal with issues like this, is to get parents weighted ideas about how things could potentially improve in our district. I think that the calendar committee, sadly, since I mentioned it, has been on hiatus. It was explained to me that our district was uninformed as to a CEA, a CASB ruling that our schools needed to be 30 minutes longer than they are. And so because they are making a major adjustment to our school day, they suspended the calendar committee until we have proficiently and effectively solved that issue. And then the calendar committee will come back online. And I mean, it was the talk of the beginning of the school year, right? That was so disruptive for everyone. And then even educators were upset that, some of them had to go to school and teach and some of them didn't. And there was a lot of inequity there. And some of them stayed in schools where they have air conditioning, but it doesn't really work. And so they were all sweating too. And I'm sure the students weren't learning, and that's the goal, right? So I think that those heat days have taught us a lot. Have they given us an answer to the problem? No, I don't think so. And a lot of what I heard, Nick, was, well, I've got a kid at Poudre and a kid at Front Range, and my kid at Front Range hasn't started yet. So what do you mean when you're talking about concurrent enrollment? So I think that there needs to be a ton of clarity. I'm really anxious to, if I'm elected, to help to rebuild some of that trust between our families, our educators, our board, our union. I think that that gets rebuilt through transparency and clarity. I think that we just need to be super clear about why those decisions were made. There shouldn't be any question that I was at my desk at work and I had parents swooping in. You're running for school board. Why do I have to go get my kid at 1 p.m.? I'm like, whoa, First of all, I haven't been elected yet. And second, I really do want to hear, how it's disrupting your family and your daily life and understand all of that. But I didn't have the answers. So that made me feel like yeah, it's there's a lot of unclear decisions out there. And I'm not sure what the end all be all will be for that, but I do think that we need a home for these answers. We need a home for the decisions that are made, whether it's, something that's on social media or on the school district's web page. The city has a killer dashboard that shows you where funds are going and how things are, how the city creates their budget. And I just think that we need to take this fear out of people knowing things and really create a lot of transparency. I think that that's where a lot of comfort comes from, a lot of trust. Yeah. So my answer to the calendar is we need to hear from families and how it's disrupting them, and what's happening to their kids when school is shut down halfway through the day. And we need to understand how it works with our concurrent enrollment. I think a lot of people are confused there, myself included. And yeah, we all should be privy to those decisions, I think.
Along with that, with growth in Fort Collins, Tinmouth, and Wellington, how do you feel that PSD should plan for new schools and facilities while also balancing the need to use mill levy dollars to upgrade existing facilities?
The way that I see things right now is I have kids at schools with modulars, and I just don't think that we should be investing in new facilities until those facilities are upgraded. We were just talking about, our schools not having air conditioning. And I think that we should be looking at making a safe and healthy learning environment for our kids before we're investing in new buildings. So that would be from what I'm seeing and hearing at this moment in time, that's my 2 cents on that, is that we've got a lot of work to do with what we've got.
We're going to shift gears just a little bit, knowing that we've seen walkouts by students across Colorado this month because of school shootings. What does school safety mean to you, and how will you support students who are rightfully worried about the safety of their education?
I want to do a lot of listening with our students. I have not had the opportunity to really sit in a forum with kids yet and talk to them about their experience in school. I know as a parent that I'm extremely troubled by what happens in what's been happening in our public school system, and it's really hitting close to home, of course, with the shootings in Evergreen having just happened on the day before we were supposed to have a lockdown drill at Poudre. I've been talking to my kids a lot about it. And it's extremely important to me. I don't know the answers, Nick. I wish that I had, a tincture that would solve this issue, because it is, I know I'm not the only parent that's thought about withdrawing my kids and heading for the hills. So I really want to hear from kids. And I really feel like there's a lot of research happening right now, again, in the realm of belonging and making sure that we're not letting any kids slip through the crack and become a kid that wants to seek retribution at their school. Or I have my own personal feelings about guns, but I also live in Colorado. So I don't, those feelings aren't going very far here. I I would lean in to just keeping our kids healthy and safe. And healthy, um, to me, includes way more investment in mental health. I do think that that's an area also where PSD is lacking. I see it. I see my friends that work in the district, uh, have to pick up a second school, or, travel across town to work with different kids in different schools. I think we have to decide what's important. I really think that we need to be investing in our mental health, though.
And
I
you see
think
that
that
as the role of the district in particular to help support mental health in students and staff.
I do. I also think that there needs to be a lot of collaboration in Northern Colorado between the health district, and city council and, other decision-making bodies. I don't think that that's just the role of the district. I think that we have a lot of resources. Again, I'll lean into my Odell hat. Um, I do a lot of work with Summit Stone, and I have over the years an Alliance for Suicide Prevention, and we have incredible resources here, and also, wildly underfunded. And I just think that if we can create a system that works for our kids and community at large, that also works to keep funding coming into these important organizations, we all win. We all win there. So, yeah, I'm going to lean into the big win. I think that's huge. That's huge in keeping our kids safe.
Along those same lines, how will you ensure that PSD schools are safe and welcoming and inclusive for all students, including the LGBTQ community, the multilingual learners, and also those with disabilities?
That's something so deep rooted in my heart. Because I feel like diversity is what makes this community great. It makes our country great. And again, just another space that I want to lean into so badly. And I would definitely engage with, other organizations in our town. I work a lot with, Jamal Skinner with the Cultural Enrichment Center. I work with India Phoenix at BIPOC Alliance. We just hosted Disabled Resource Services at Odell. And, so I get to work with so many of these amazing folks in our community. And I just see this absolute opportunity to bring, Kim with Splash, to help our LGBTQ plus kids feel welcome, and to make our educators understand the language and verbiage to use in these situations. I think that there are, so many opportunities here. And again, it's this ultimate win. It's if the district starts using these organizations, I think that they'll become better funded. The money's there, that we have trillions of dollars in endowments in this country, that we just need to start getting folks to, it's raining. We need to really be investing in our communities. That rainy day is here, and it's time to make, groups that have been just marginalized over the last decade, feel like they're all a part of us coming together, making our communities better. School is that first community experience in a kid's life. It needs to be the best experience. So they take that and they turn it into the world at large around them. And they need to understand that, well, they need to enjoy that diversity. I think that that's where we're really missing, is that joy of, having a different perspective, that accelerant of learning in a different perspective isn't celebrated enough in our schools. That's where I think that our nonprofit partners can come in and help us. I work with a group called A Queer Endeavor out of CU that's just incredible. And that's what they do. Their whole programming is teaching educators how to talk to our LGBTQ plus kids. And these are kids who are going through major life changes under the tutelage of our educators. They've got to know how to talk to these kids. Middle school's hard enough. And I like our middle school teachers should be sainted. They're really doing such incredible work. And we know that it's not just in books and on computers. But that's how we build our kids' EQs, their emotional quotient, right? Those soft skills that I mean, again, just make good community. That I think that we need to be investing in those spaces for sure.
And I'm really interested in your prerogative on this because as the community outreach director for Odell's, you've had interactions with so many of these nonprofits. You know their funding situations. You know that PSD, and I think you were in the room also with our friends for the Poudre Libraries and Howdy Neighbor for our work with Comic-Con and other things like that. And all of the organizations were in the room. Brian Kingsley stood up and said, "There is no more cavalry coming. You are it. Our students need mental health support, and we need you as community partners to step up." Knowing that this is, as a school board, one of the most visible roles in local government, do you see it as your role to not only engage with students and families across the district, but also with nonprofit partners and to bring in that funding and support mechanisms that were just advocating for?
Absolutely. I mean, it's such an untapped resource. From what I'm seeing and hearing, I'm sure I'll learn ways that a lot of the partners that I work with are working with our schools that I don't know about. I know that, Allison Hines and her team at Boys and Girls Club are doing incredible things with before and after school care, and Partners Mentoring Youth is really digging in and doing incredible work with, again, just belonging and kids feeling heard and seen. But there is a lot of opportunity here. I think that a lot of the partners that I work with have just incredible vehicles for change for our community. And again, public education is the very basis of public good, right? It's the foundation of us investing in our future. You don't plant a tree to sit under it, in your lifetime, maybe even. So I think that there's a huge opportunity, and I don't take it lightly that I have the connections that I do in this community and the relationships that I do with these folks that I have just so much admiration for, and think that we can help each other to thrive.
Are there any voices in particular or community perspectives that you've interacted with that you're seeking to amplify as part of your candidacy? Voices that you feel have gone unheard in the community?
Unheard, maybe misrepresented. I think that I think we covered the groups that I feel like need to be lifted up and included as a part of that school community. I think our kids with disabilities, that our LGBTQ plus community, our neurodivergent kids, and really delving into mental health. I think that these are things that in the past have been taboo and not talked about. I think that those are the areas that I think that that's what's going to strengthen us as a district, is leaning in there and taking care of these kids that and our educators that haven't had a voice in the past. I think our educators feel unheard and unseen in some of these spaces too. We had 2 educators have to take leave last year because they were physically injured by kids. And I just think that there's a lot to be said for um, these opportunities and creating safer spaces through transparency, through collaboration. Um, we need to bring in the experts, and they're here.
So what I'm hearing from you is a campaign of hope around the idea of strengthening relationships.
Absolutely. I think that hope is just, it's a grand word for seeing what's possible. And I see incredible possibilities in our school district. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Karla, we've reached the point of the interview where it's time for rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And so whatever comes to top of mind is just fine. What is your favorite local coffee shop?
Bean cycle.
Favorite park in Fort Collins or nearby?
City Park.
Uh, Surprisingly, now I will say this is because we've interviewed some of the city council candidates already, but those interviews haven't launched yet, so you wouldn't have a chance to hear them. But a lot of them have said the Tavelli Elementary Park, and in
Oh,
particular,
that's such
before
a
it
good
was
one.
right before it was renovated, the big fort that was there, and now it's an updated, modernized fort, which is it's pretty good still.
Oh, I
It's
think
not quite the same.
it's not the same. I'm snooty about it because I mean my kids walked to Tavelli, so I spent a lot of time at the old Tavelli Park.
So, you know, the thing that I loved, and I've mentioned this before, so I apologize to listeners who heard this before, but the idea of the entire community coming together and outside of this park was a placard that indicated all of the different folks. Mayor Troxel's mother was on there, the Ace Hardware in Old Town, all of
You
these
know,
different
Dell.
organizations. Yes, Odell's, yeah, absolutely, was all on this sign and the placard. And I think that that's what it takes truly to build a support for not only an educational organization, but for school and a community itself. To have everybody rallying around it is really so important. Um,
I agree.
no longer rapid fire, but let's let's keep on rolling. School subject that you loved the most as a student.
Ooh, when I was a kid, I'd say writing, creative writing. And as a college student, I would say anthropology, political science.
What was the school subject that you liked the least?
Oh, calculus.
Hmm. You know, I didn't like calculus until I got to business calculus at CSU, and
Ah.
that's when it clicked. I don't know why. It just seemed like it made a lot more sense. What's your favorite book?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I have so many. Um, I'm reading Possible right now by William Ury, and it is phenomenal. I'm listening to it. And The Goldfinch is one of my favorite books.
Would you consider yourself an early bird or a night owl?
Night Owl.
If you had one word to describe PSD schools today, what would you use?
Full of possibility.
Possibility.
One word.
Possibility. We'll use it.
Possibility. Hopeful. I mean, yeah, I don't have one word. That's, yeah,
What would voters be surprised to learn about you?
that I have deep roots here in Fort Collins. I have two cousins that were born and raised here. My grandfather was from Colorado Springs, so I've got some cool deep roots here in Colorado.
Amazing. Who do you look up to as a role model in public service or in education?
I really admire Christine Hendricks, our principal at Tavelli. And I really view Julie Pignataro, our city councilwoman, as one of my mentors.
If you could have one superpower to improve PSD overnight, what would it be?
I'd have $1 trillion.
The Bruce Wayne effect. That's
Yeah.
really what it is. Okay, that's fair. Uh, what 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 do you hope that PSD will look like in 20 years from now?
Man, I'm gonna stay on your superhero bent and say like Iron Man's lab
Hmm.
and just be super high tech and have a space for everyone.
Karla, is there anything else that you'd like the audience to know about yourself or your campaign?
Yeah, Nick, I feel like you really covered it all. I love dogs.
Good to know. That's a good closer, I think. Oh, okay. Yeah. People know how to fill out their ballots now.
I would say that I really love and value this community. And I am a nurturer by spirit, and that's what I'm doing here. I really want to build on what we have and continue to make it great.
Karla, where can voters learn more about you and your campaign?
I've got a website, karlaforpsd.com. We were having trouble with it yesterday, so I need to tune in with my team and see if it's up and running today. But I also have a Facebook page that's also Karla for PSD. And so, we post events and things on that Facebook page.
Amazing. Karla, thank you so much for joining us here on Dear Fort Collins. I hope it was fun.
It was super fun, Nick. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And for more interviews with your local candidates for school board and city council, keep tuning into Dear Fort Collins. Listen in, and hopefully you can learn something more about how to fill out your ballot from a more informed position. And we'll see you next time.